With this unit first, because this is the main unit, this is the bread and the butter, this is what's going to do all the work on the field. The reason for the maintenance on these fields is basically to keep the grass standing up. That's your whole objective. Right now we have a little bit of infill floating on top, and from the installation it settled quite a bit. If you remember,
yes,
a month ago or so, it settled quite a bit, and it will settle a little bit more, but the field is breaking in very nicely. The fiber looks great, and the rubber is settling back, which is good. This unit, what it's going to do is it's basically going to scrape across and stand up the grass blades, and it'll also even out any unevenness in the rubber. So if you have a high point, it'll screen it out and drop it into the low points. That's basically the whole reason for this unit. And the fiber in the grass has a memory. If you keep it standing, it'll stay standing. If you get it used to laying down, it's hard to get it back up. So that's the whole purpose.
Right.
Now, intervals for the use on this machine, we're looking at, our recommendations are every 100 hours of use. And to put that into realistic terms, if you're using the hell out of the field, you know, you got weekend games, gym classes, after school, that equates to about every 2 weeks. As things slow down, you could cut that back to 3 weeks, 4 weeks. In the winter, you're not touching it, leave it alone. You don't have to be out here doing anything.
Well, it's going to be this much snow out there.
Yeah, that's true too. So I mean, it depends on the climate, but exactly. If you're not using it, leave it alone. You know, otherwise during heavy use 2 weeks, and then somewhere in the middle, based on what you see.
You can't do it too much.
You know, I wouldn't start going every week or something like that, but yeah, you're not going to hurt the unit, especially with the brushes. Now, they came a little earlier and we were talking through some of this, and I'll go through it again. I'm going to recommend that you remove the tine unit, okay? The reason for that is that's an aggressive unit, and it's designed to dig into the rubber and kind of break it up a little bit. You don't want to do that on a regular basis every 2 weeks. What you want to do is maybe once a year, twice a year at the most, pull that unit. You know, it's got 3 bolts, bolt it up and use it that way. I would say once a year, really. If you want to hit it in the spring after a, you know, full football season, in the winter, great. Hit it once.
With the snow package
That's what I do.
The snow, not really, because when the snow lands, it's going to fill in the voids
fill
too.
in.
You know, I mean, if you get a strange ice storm and it kind of, you know, but no, typically the snow will not pack it down. Like I said, take this unit off, use it once a year. Well, this unit is not going to do any wear to the field. It's just going to fluff it. The use on this machine, this is a hydraulic unit. The tires go up and down for towing.
That's what we got in here.
And also, when you're dragging the field, what you're going to do is you're going to set the unit down, and you're going to keep the tires in contact just to carry a little bit of the weight of the unit.
Okay.
Okay? So it carries a little bit of the weight. You'll see it, and we'll play with it. I'll show you where we're looking at.
So we probably will have to adjust this a little bit.
Well, that's for towing. When you have it up, you want it to ride flush. Okay? When you drop it, it should, and we'll hook it up and see where we're at. Spring or whatever. The pattern for the brushing, basically you want to stick with the football lines, the way the panels came in the field. So we're going to be brushing with the yard lines. Goal, 5, 10. You're going to brush, come back around, and you can make kind of donuts working your way up the
So
field.
you brush, and then this way you brush back this way.
Yeah, so let's say you start on the end line here. You run up the end line, turn on the sideline, come back on the goal line.
Right.
And then when you come here, just like you're mowing, move over one step. Go up, come back down. Move over a step. And then when you get to the point where you've hit that spot already, you can jump to the next set of 10 yarders or 15 yarders, whatever it is, and then start another pattern. Okay? If the field is excessively matted, you see it, you know, you're like, you know what, I think it's kind of laying down. You could continue straight through, and what's going to happen is you're going to hit it once this way, and then you're going to hit it back the other way. So you kind of get a double hit on most of it, if you think it's necessary. If the field looks like this, it's looking good, it's not matted, then just continue with that single pattern. And then at the very end, you can just take a wide swath around the perimeter where you made all the U-turns.
Right.
Because you're going to see once this runs a swath, it's going to leave a little bit of a trail because it kicks up the rubber a little bit, and it also produces a little bit of static. So it kind of looks like you peppered the field. You know what I mean? So in the corners, you're going to have a lot of turn marks, obviously, because you're going to keep doing it. So if you run across that, you'll clean it up, so to speak. All right? And I was telling them earlier, if you want to have this looking real good for the game, you don't want to brush it right before the game because you're going to get that static
We
darkness.
have a big game Friday night.
Okay.
And it's going to rain.
And you have rain coming. So today's a perfect day to hit this, brush it up, clean it up, do what you want to do, let it rain, and it'll green right back up. If you hit it with the dew in the morning, that'll also lower the amount of static. If there's a little bit of dew, that's good. That's a good thing. And not soaking wet, you don't want to do it during the rain because it's going to stick more. But if it's a little damp, that's good. If we're going to talk about time frames too, in the summertime, you don't want to hit this during the peak heat of the day because this is a plastic, and when it's really hot, it gets a little bit softer. It's pliable, and you're going to put more wear on it during those hours. So in the summer heat, I would suggest first thing in the morning, late in the day, when things are cooler. Let's talk a little bit about issues that you may come across on the field. I know you guys have been doing this, so you do have some kind of idea, and you can ask questions based on what you've seen in the past. But I'd say probably the number one problem on these fields is the gum. The gum you can take care of by freezing it and cracking it, chipping it, kind of. There's freeze sprays. If you don't have the freeze spray, you can take a bag of ice, set it on there for a little while, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and then if you chip at it, it's a pain in the neck, but you'll get it off. Okay? Little debris, sunflower seeds, it's kind of hard. It gets caught in there. It's kind of hard to get off, but listen, this machine, it may not pick it up on one swipe, but and I don't suggest hitting this 10 times in one day, but over duration, if you continue to do this.
Well, where we get most of the debris from the players' benches.
Okay.
So
What kind of debris?
Statue seeds.
Yeah.
Sunflower seeds.
I would make a recommendation to the coaching staff. Make sure they're not bringing seeds out because it is a pain in the neck.
Yeah, it is.
Seeds are not necessary out here. Gum should be
Be on the field.
it should be eliminated from the field completely.
Right.
Because that stuff is, damaging to the field. While we're on that topic, let me talk about things like vomit or blood. Let's say you have an accident and you're worried about disinfecting type situations. A good solution to use is like a 1 part vinegar to 10 parts water. That'll kill a lot of bacteria. You can use a Lysol type of spray. Stay away from Cloroxes, anything that's bleached. Common sense, things that are going to color. Those type of things you want to stay away from. Any kind of solvents you want to stay away from because it is a plastic and you don't want to melt the product.
You don't want to be
But as far as
peroxide.
disinfecting, if you have some vomit, scrape off the surface. You can douse it with water because it will run right through. You can wash it through and hit it with one of those solutions to kill the germs. In the summer, these systems get warm, so they're really not a place for bacteria. Penn State did a bunch of studies on these things.
Well, we used to have the other one treated once a year, the antimicrobial stuff.
And you can do that if you want. My opinion is
I don't
really
think
not
it's a waste of
necessary. It is a waste of money. But again, if you want that security, go for it. Again, when the system gets warm, it's not a healthy environment for bacteria, so it really doesn't grow in here.
But it does get warm.
It does get warm. It does. I asked, it looks like you have all the line striping in here, so it doesn't look like you're going to be doing any painting on the surface.
The only painting we have to do is the pink ribbon.
On the field? Okay. When you're painting, let me just go through that quickly so you have a general idea. You're looking to just color the grass and not douse the surface with paint. What will happen is if you douse the rubber, it's going to turn into basically a track material. It'll coagulate and it'll become hard, and when you walk on it, you'll feel the difference.
Like that Pioneer Titan paint.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the way our whole numbers go.
Okay.
Because
So-
every year we're doing the same.
So you want to move quickly, you want it to be light, and just color the grass for the most part.
Anything that you're painting here, we're going to use the Pioneer Game Time removable paint.
Okay.
So it's not a heavy, it's an aerosol, it's not heavy.
Okay, great, great. We also spoke about plowing. I don't know if that's something you guys are going to be
Well,
doing.
let's hear about it because
You never know. Plowing, you need to use a light unit. This is a great unit you got here. A light plow, a light unit. On the bottom of the plow, you need to put some kind of protection on the blade. Either you can cut a piece of PVC, put a channel in it, drop it in, strap it on so it stays, and you can run it that way. You will leave a little bit of snow, get most of it. I mean, you don't want to have the blade right on the surface, obviously. You don't want to have any tears. You got to stay clear of the corners and stuff, you know, kind of obvious stuff. There are different ways, and if you really want to do this, I would connect with the office and get more details on the system that you're going to be using. But there's ways to kind of snow blow this into a trailer out here, or you could push it to the side. There's a bunch of different things. What's going to happen if you do use the plow method, okay, when you blow this to the side, when the snow melts, it's going to collect some rubber, and you're going to have a section of black there. And you're going to need to redistribute that out.
Well, that's what
they,
they've done in the past.
that's what they do when they come out here. They use a snow blower. They've used a Bobcat before, and that's what happened.
Bobcat,
All the pellets are
you know,
right there.
Bobcat, you know, you could do some damage.
Oh, I know.
Bobcat is a
It
dangerous
did.
unit. Our recommendation would be to put a plow on something like this, or a blower type unit that's picking it up and throwing it to something. That would be our recommendation. And again, once the rubber gets there, you're going to need to collect that and kind of distribute it back out.
Well, that's where it all.
But you know, those are some just basics that we can touch on. You know, the key is to protect the surface, and then at the end, that rubber has to get back out here. Otherwise, little by little, you're going to strip the surface,
Right, and then you leave more grass.
and you leave more grass exposed. You see right now, it's nice and full, and that's what you want. Okay. And while we're on that, there are a couple isolated spots on the field that continually get lowered in infill because kids are swiping at the one spot all the time. Great example is the corner kick for soccer. Any penalty kick type situation there. Also the field hockey corner kicks there. They're swiping at the one spot all the time, and they're basically throwing the rubber out little by little.
Well, lacrosse, the two lacrosse circles, they're famous.
The two lacrosse circles.
And they
that's,
always practice on this end. The other, on your whole field, you can stand up in the bleachers, and you can. This end of the field was worn out way faster than that.
okay. And that's something you need to get with the ADs on. What they need to really do is during practice is move that off of the circle, because it's notorious, and there's a lot of fields that have replacement circles, and it doesn't look the same. It doesn't look good. I mean, in practice situations, they need to kind of move things around a little bit.
Well, I read
Do what
that
they
in
can.
Right.
You know.
literature about it, saying they
Yeah.
should move the practices.
Yes.
Not no
So
practices.
someone needs to connect with them and kind of make that a policy. And like I said, as far as the infill goes, we left you some rubber on site in those big bags.
So what do we do with that? It's up to the dump.
So if you come out with a bucket full, 2 buckets full, and you come out here, it's not even every time. Maybe once a month, once every couple of months, you come out with a bucket and just hit those key isolated spots just to add it. If you need to put it in, just drop it there, and you can either rub it in with your finger,
Right.
take a rake. Rakes work
Yep.
well too. Just rake it in. Just get it to fill back up where it's, and you're going to notice right away. I mean, right now I'm not going to find it. The field is still new, but you'll see it when you step on it. It even seems like there's a depression in the base because the
Well,
rubber.
it's going to be
infill
that
is low.
spot right out where it's, where the soccer does their penalty kick. Because
Yes.
they repeatedly do practice that.
That's right.
And it's right in front of the girls lacrosse field. So
That's right. And that little blue tick or the black tick, it would be.
That's field
The
hockey.
black tick, that's notorious too, because they're swiping at that continuously. So those are a couple items that, periodically, a few times a year, you need to come out and just check that and top it off.
I can't believe with the magnet, I mean, just from unloading it to hauling it, we already picked up the hell of a screw. I mean,
Okay. That's a unit, again, if
this
you,
one is,
uh,
you do it separately.
does this have a hitch on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can put it right on it.
That's what it showed on
This unit is a unit that you use if you see it necessary. If you don't think you have debris out here, you don't need to use that regularly.
Well, I think probably once a year.
Yeah, I would say if you're timing it, bring this out.
Right.
'Cause that's going to really dig down and bring things up.
Right.
And then that unit, you run it across and you'll be fine.
So you do this one first, then this one?
You can mix that. If you do that, there's two things. If you do this first, this is going to pick up a little, throw more rubber through the system.
Right.
Okay, because the rubber's kind of on top of that.
Right.
Now, it has shakers built inside, so the rubber technically is supposed to fall back through. What happens though is as you're running around and you're building up debris in there, the debris kind of blocks off the screen.
Let the
Oh,
rubber
yeah.
back
And then
in.
the rubber starts building up. So
Okay.
during this process, I would stop every once in a while, like when you do a quarter of the field, stop, take a look. If there's a lot of debris, clean it out, put it in a bag in the back of your thing, and continue.
You see the shot back and backing it out, or
No, these, you could just pick up the debris
It'll
quickly.
all be in
You know,
clumps anyways.
yeah, it's going to be like grass fibers,
Right.
these little
Pine needles,
organic
leaves,
stuff,
whatever.
whatever.
Yeah.
Hair
Right.
stuff,
Right.
tape
All of that
pieces. Yeah. So that kind of stuff, quarter of the field, pick it up, keep the screens clean so the rubber falls back through.
so you do this first.
I would do this first. Yes. And then I would run the groomer. And like I said, if you're running this, you could run this behind it too, just to pick up anything. This unit, if you have a lot of debris, use it. If you don't need to use this at all. The only reason this is here is to pick up the debris.
Well, there's leaves and
Yeah. Right now it's not too bad. You have a few stray fibers. That's common.
right.
During the process of putting in these lines, the fibers have loops in them. If you cut one of those loops, it's loose at that point. At some point, that fiber is going to come out. So that's what's happening.
Should you do the sweeper this way and then that thing this way?
The sweeper doesn't matter.
It doesn't
Where you have the debris, just go pick
So
it
you
up.
can.
Follow any pattern you like with this. This is not real aggressive. And when you set this, there's a control here. One is to set the height. One is going to come down, and the other one is going to throw the brush. Well, the brush works off the wheel. The other one's for the vibrator.
Right.
Correct.
So
So
you don't sit there and hold the button. You just
yeah,
intermittently-
you set the level as you're towing. Set the level. When you see it just drop, just touch.
right.
You want it just touching the grass blade. You don't want it deep into the rubber, throwing up mounds of rubber, because the screen's not going to be able to keep up.
Yeah.
You want it just to touch the surface, and it'll pick up 80%, 60% of the garbage, and it'll leave a little behind. If you're trying to get everything in one shot, you're going to be throwing a lot of rubber. Okay? And then this is the kind of thing that you're not looking to clean everything off in one shot. Just over repeated use, it'll stay clean. Another system a lot of people like to use to clean these fields are blowers. I know you guys have the walk behind.
Yeah,
or
we've got
even the
billy
handheld.
goes and backpack blowers.
Yeah, those work great as well. If you have a lot of debris, leaves, this
I've
and
done
that,
that before.
you can run through, blow it to one side. That works very well too. As long as you're not pointing the nozzle straight in, displacing the rubber out. If it's skimming across the surface, that works very well. The other thing, I left him a tube of the glue that we use on this on the fields.
Okay.
I left him a caulking tube.
Okay.
And he also said he has a bucket of glue and so forth. If you wind up in a situation where you got a big game coming up and you have what we call a minor repair, a few
Yeah.
inches long, whatever,
Yeah.
it's very easy to fix that. And I'm gonna just go through some basics on that. This way you're not stuck. You're worried about having a dangerous situation during the game or something. If these lines are permanent, but this, let's say that yellow tick here.
Yeah.
If something like this, the corner of this was peeling up, basically what's involved is you lift it up, you clean the rubber out from underneath.
Shot back.
Shop vac works great.
I've done
and
this
the-
before.
Okay.
On the other field.
Shop vac is great, and the reason it's great is because if the shop vac is clean, you can put the rubber back
That's what we
into it.
did, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you shop vac it, you take that tube,
Tube,
or you can use the buckets of glue,
Right.
and you could either fill a plastic bag as like a little squeeze icing bag or something,
Yep.
or even Home Depot sells those masonry bags.
Yep.
Okay, squeeze it in, just
Well,
press it in,
Yep.
put a little weight on it till it dries, and then take that rubber, shake it back in, and you're done. Very simple, and it gets you through a tight situation if you get into that.
Mhm.
If you wind up with something major, which you shouldn't have any problems, but if something arises, a foot or more or something like that, give us a call. We come out, take care of it, make sure whatever happened, we'll.
well, his main man, he explained to me how he does it. He'll pull the fibers back and he'll duct tape them back. So when you glue it, the fibers don't get into the glue.
Yeah, and it depends how tight the situation is. If you have enough room where you can open it up and that nozzle is met, because you're putting the nozzle right in there. So then you're not really worried. You don't really need to tape it. Honestly, put a little bit of glue, press it in, put a weight on it, let it dry for 5-6 hours. And then that's it. Refill it back. Before we start demoing the machines a little bit, you guys have any particular questions, things
No.
that you've seen in the past, things you're worried about?
No?
Oh, I know what I do want to ask you.
Sure.
What about the hump though here, where that rises? In
The
middle?
crown,
Right.
the
now,
crown on
when
the field?
Right.
That's-
With that broom, it won't matter.
that's
right?
not going to affect it at
That's
all.
the subsurface.
This is going to follow the contour of what we
Okay.
have out here.
Even with the tines
That's what I
on.
wanted with
Even
the
with the
time.
times,
It
that's
does.
correct. I mean,
Okay.
this is such a gradual. If you had a quick change, let's say the infill built up in one spot, it's going to screed that off. But over the long haul, it's
It
just
won't.
going to follow the surface.
Okay.
And it will pepper it up a little bit. Don't be concerned. Why don't we start with this unit?
I guess.
Hook it up, and then.
We'll hook the power up to it.
And then this connects to the battery on the unit. You know what? Oh, that is. So you just want to make sure this is not dragging and it doesn't get caught up so you don't rip it off. That hook comes in handy. And then this one.
You get a thing, plug in thing for us?
This is pretty straightforward, you know, black to minus, red to plus. Okay. So we got some juice here. Okay, there we go. Hello there. Good. Okay. What I'm doing here is I'm just setting the ride height. The front of the brush was kind of off the ground.
Okay.
So I'm just readjusting it to where it's sitting flat, and I'm just going to tighten this back.
Then you'll adjust
I
it to
mean,
that.
if this
And,
is a,
and then you don't have to play with this
right,
anymore.
because this is the piece of equipment we're going to use to groom
Yeah,
with,
if this
so.
is what you're using, if the hitch doesn't change, then this is set and you're done.
Okay.
Okay? So I'm tightening it. There we go. Now you're riding flat. This is obviously the use position on the field. When you're towing it, use the hydraulics to pick it up in the air.
Well, that's how we got it over here.
Okay? And all the brushes and everything's
Can
off
this
the
sit
ground.
outside?
What's that?
Can this sit outside?
I'm sure it can, but it's probably going to start rusting after some time. I would put it in if you could. You'd get better use out of it. While we're talking about that, the brushes, they may start to bend in one direction from repeated
You flip 'em
dragging.
around?
You can flip them around. They should last for years. If you have an issue, you can get replacement brushes. We'll direct you in that sense, but I don't know too many people that actually replace the brushes during the life. They last very well. When you're using this, when you're storing it, you want to keep it up. When you unhook it, you have a kickstand. Drop that down because you want to keep the weight off the brush.
That makes sense.
So when it's folded on the field, like kind of bent, it'll get a chance to lay back. All right, keep the weight off the brush, basically. When you're going to tow, the idea is to drop it down till the brush is hit and you get good contact, but you're still carrying a bit of the weight on the tires.
Okay.
So I'm going to do that right now, and as you're dragging, you'll get a feel for that too. You may want to, I see the back is hitting first, but I want to make sure we have contact everywhere. Now the tires are going to roll. If you see the tires rolling, you're probably in good shape. If the tires aren't rolling, drop it down a little bit more. Okay? So we run it like that. If you don't think it's doing enough,
Now, what about this?
the time that's designed to get really in there.
Right.
Okay?
You do not need to
So
do.
you're not playing with that,
But
and
when,
that's
if
why
we
I'm.
ever do have to do it, how aggressive do you want to?
Well,
You
it's
just want it level on the,
it's
so
set.
just barely on
Yeah,
the top.
I mean
right?
that's what it's going to be. They're spring loaded. They're designed to really get in there. So that's why I'm suggesting that you only do this once a year. Okay.
Okay.
So this is very aggressive. The time we use it today, and we'll use it once a year. In general, you're going to be using the brushes.
Right. Yes. You said maybe in the springtime.
Yeah, maybe in the springtime. That's it. So that we'll just unbolt that for most of it.
Basically, almost a carpenter.
Yeah, and they are spring loaded, so they're just going to kind of ride and kind of penetrate as much as possible on their own.
They got pretty much the easy spring going.
Okay. So who wants to do the honors and start driving a little bit? You can see the trail. So it's pretty easy to follow on the road because you guys leave a little bit of trail. Okay. And that's why I'm saying you don't want to do this right before it goes. Right. A little bit of rain. And the thing is, the system is new right now, so there's more rubber on the surface than will be next year. So if you really want to you're working your way in, you're going to have a real tight turn to do. If you get to the outside, then you can work your way up the field. When you hit that, start a new pattern out there. And you can just work your way. And this is perfect.
Yeah.
And you see what I'm saying with the little bit of discolored?
Yep.
You know?
Well, there was a heavy spot. You can see a lot of rubbers in the top.
Yeah. In the heavy spot,
around pretty good.
it'll move it around a little
So I
bit.
hit it twice.
If you want to hit something twice, that's up to you. I would, you know, as a general rule, try to hit the field once and move on. You know, if you have a spot that you're worried about, or it has a little extra rubber, or it's, you know, the lacrosse crease is a little extra matted, you want to hit it to the limit. Sure. You know, like I said, especially without the times when you're just on the brushes,
Yep.
you're not going to damage the surface. The whole point is just to fluff the grass and even out any uneven
Look how much
rubber.
stuff that them brushes picked up already.
It kicks it up.
Yeah. That's
And then the other thing is, at the end of this, you're going to want to lift it and clean out all the brushes, you know, just to keep it fresh. When you stop and you pick the unit up
Yep.
to walk away, it's going to leave an area of excess rubber because whatever was in the brush kind of falls in that
Sure.
spot.
That makes sense.
It's fairly normal. If you want to stop in the corner, or here's a tip, if you have a low spot, stop there.
Oh, yeah.
Stop there. You can rub that in that area that's a little bit low from the penalty kick or whatever the situation, or the lacrosse crease, okay? And then you can rake that up a little bit, pick up any debris. You can use a blower just to clean the surface, or just rake it off, just to even it out. And that's pretty straightforward. You work your way up the field.
Right.
At the end, you do some circles around the perimeter to catch those,
Where you
know,
turn.
scallop
Oh,
turns
okay,
over
sure.
and over to get a little bit closer to the edge, whatever, you know,
Yep.
whatever you may need. And that's the system. Pretty
easy.
straightforward. Again, when you go to take it apart, tow it, you're going to lift it up, and you will see as we lift it up, and you didn't use it that much, so there's probably not that much rubber in it. But if you look underneath, you can see the rubber, excess rubber there.
Yep.
You see it? So that's a matter of, you know, raking it up at
So
the end.
if you ran the speed reverser, you'd probably get a lot of those loose fibers that I'm picking up in the broom.
You would get a lot of loose fibers in there, yes, but this is still going to pick up. Like I said, this is going to pick up 80%.
Right.
You know, it's not like a vacuum where it's
No,
going
I
to pick
get
up
that.
everything.
But you should do that first. Then.
Yes.
And that doesn't matter. I mean, you just as long
That
as you
one-
cover every.
Exactly. That one's not real aggressive. You're just barely touching the tips, trying to pick up the debris. You're not trying to get down into the surface at all. Any questions on this unit?
No. You guys?
Nope.
Anybody?
Gee, all I need to say with it.
Okay.
Looks good.
Shall we hook up the litter cap now?
Yeah. Well.
Just want to make sure these ain't dangling, catching on a tire.
Right.
It rips the wiring harness right
Should
out.
we hook the magnet up to it?
If you want to demo it, go ahead.
Well, you might as well.
It's upside down. Yeah. Just find it.
And with this, you're not doing a pattern, you're just sweeping it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to follow a pattern so you know what you hit
Yeah,
when
but
you did
if
it.
we do this, we're doing that afterwards. So
Yes.
it doesn't matter.
So this, you're going to concentrate on areas that have more debris. Obviously, some of the
benches.
edges have more than other areas, so you're going to concentrate that where you need it. If the field is clean, there's no reason to bring this unit out.
Okay.
The only reason for this is to clean the surface.
All
This
by,
is
like you
the
said,
one that
benches.
actually does the actual maintenance on the field. This is just the cleaning apparatus.
Okay.
So this unit, the way this works, you have two controls on here. One is going to start the hopper, the vibrator,
Right.
to get the rubber falling back down into the surface rather than count.
Well, you don't sit there and hold. I mean, you only do it when you need it, 'cause it's, right?
No, the hopper is, that's, when you're brushing, that's continuous.
The vibrator.
Yes. As you're driving, that's on all the time.
All the
because
time.
you're going to be throwing rubber up into this
No,
unit
I get
along
that.
with
That's
the debris.
mechanical. That runs off the wheels.
The brush
The
runs
brush,
off the wheels.
but not the vibrator.
Yes, the vibrator is just to get the rubber to fall back and keep the debris.
Right.
So that's going to run the entire time that you're actually sweeping. Okay. This also has an up-down adjustment,
Yep.
and you're going to just set it till you notice that it's actually throwing some debris. You're going to look behind and see if it's collecting, if it's not, and you just set that to the perfect height where it's just hitting the grass blades and not lifting too much rubber. Because if you're pulling up a lot of rubber, the hoppers, the bouncer, the vibrator is not going to be able to keep up. And
You
again,
fill
the
up full of
debris.
rubber.
If you have a lot of debris, clean that out because the debris will also block the screen. So when in the beginning, if you're not sure how to gauge that, run 2-3 panels, take a look. If there's not much in there, then you've got to gauge. I would say probably a quarter of the field, clean the hopper, and that is probably a good gauge where you're not building up too much debris and the rubber's going back down. If you see a lot of rubber in there, something is off. Either you're too deep or there's too much garbage
Too
in there.
much got.
Okay? Again, that unit. Whoa. Okay, this is the up. Right? And we'll start in an up position, we'll start driving, and we'll lower it as we go until, or if you want to kind of look and set it, you know, that works as well. Can you guys see the brush? I can't see from the
You
side.
could go down a little bit more. Right there, looks like she's hitting.
Just
That's
touched?
just touching
Okay,
it.
so we can try this as a starter. Who wants to drive this one? If it's not picking up, drop it a little bit. If you're picking up too much rubber, raise it a little bit. But, yeah, you got it. You can see in this swipe.
Got quite a bit of stuff. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to get a little bit of backflow too. In other words, some of the little hairs and stuff, if they're the right shape, they're going to fall, or a sunflower seed, some of it. So it's not like 100% deal,
No.
but it'll clean up like 80% of what you're trying to get up.
Yeah.
How about the magnet? What do we get there?
The magnet.
Let's see what we got.
You get anything, bobby pin or anything?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Hey,
You
good.
know,
That's good.
It's a new system. You know how much stuff you're gonna have here.
For now, you know what I mean? Down the road, you may pick up extra.
Maintenance. Well, you know, once every month and a half or so, just take a look at them spots. And if you think it needs something, you know, bring a couple buckets out and just, you know, scatter it and then drag through it. You can do that as a general maintenance, and that'll help you out a lot.
Right.
These little spots, you can just drop it with your hand and shake it in or rake it in. That works well too. Yeah, and like I said, if you have a spot, like you could stop at the glow piece for lacrosse. and kind of that'll leave you a little bit. And it's going to be more when you do the whole field out.
Right, that was my 2 passes.
2 passes, you got a little bit. You're going to get more up into the brush, and when you stop, you'll have a little bit more there to play with. I think, we've gone through pretty much all the basics. I mean, I don't know if you guys have any questions on anything. If you're worried about the game, I would say this is a great opportunity to run the entire field, like what we talked about.
Yep.
You're going to get some rain tonight. This little peppering we have, this effect, it will clean up completely as soon as the rain touches it.
Yeah.